Imagine this. You're at a fancy family party. Your kids are standing right next to you, and you hear your own mother laugh and call them embarrassing in front of everyone. Now imagine she has no idea you secretly own the entire estate she's standing on. My name is Danielle. I'm 39. And the day she tried to humiliate my kids on my property was the day I stopped being the good daughter and flipped the script on her power. This isn't just family drama, it's money, control, a hidden deed. And what happens when the family scapegoat finally bites back? Watch till the end, because what I did next, they're still talking about it. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you're listening from in the comments. The breeze smelled like mint and soil. You could hear the sprinklers ticking somewhere beyond the hedges. White tents flapped softly against their poles, casting long shadows across the trimmed lawn. And everything, every glass flute, every hand-poured candle, every rented white chair, looked like a magazine spread. It was my mother's kind of event. All appearances, all angles, and none of it real. I was standing near the gravel path with my two kids, Eli, who's 10, and Layla, just turned 7. They were dressed up the way I asked. Neat, quiet colors, hair brushed, shoes shined. Layla had a little ribbon in her braid. Eli was holding the gift we brought. Something homemade, because that's what he was proud of. They didn't run around or yell. They didn't knock over a vase or track in dirt. They just existed, next to me. Calm, sweet, a little bored maybe, but trying. And then I heard it. My mother, standing near the buffet line, leaned in toward some of her garden club friends, one of them holding a mimosa, one adjusting her pearls, and laughed. Her laugh cut through the music, familiar in a way that still made my stomach tighten. Mom, they're embarrassing. Some people just don't know how to raise kids properly. Thin laughter followed. Not strong, not real. Just obligated, nervous. Little polite sounds from women who would rather wound a child than risk disagreeing with the hostess. I didn't move. I didn't speak. I looked down at Layla, who blinked up at me like she'd heard something but didn't know how to hold it yet. Her lips parted like she might ask if Grandma meant her, then pressed together again when she caught the look in my eyes. Eli's smile faltered. He clutched the gift tighter. His little jaw tensed. He stared straight ahead, suddenly fascinated with a spot on the patio, doing the same thing I learned to do as a kid in this house. Go still so no one can say you are causing a scene. And I smoothed my dress, took a slow, full breath, the kind that fills your lungs with air so you don't scream. I felt the air burn a little on the way in, like it had to pass through every time I had ever bitten my tongue for her. My mother, her name's Joyce, was wearing that soft blue linen dress she always saves for events like this. Hair in its perfect silver twist. That rehearsed southern drawl she slips into when strangers are near. And she was soaking in the attention like it was sunlight. She had her hand on someone's forearm, leaning in, eyes bright, like the center of the universe had always been wherever she decided to stand. What she didn't know was that she was standing on a property she didn't own anymore. She thought it was hers. Because it had been. Because for 37 years she told everyone this estate was a family legacy. But what she never said out loud, what she never wanted anyone to know, was that she lost it. She kept the language of legacy and quietly ignored the math that was killing it. The taxes piled up, the maintenance costs, the roofing estimates she ignored. The second mortgage she hid from everyone until it was nearly defaulted. She came to me quietly last winter. Tears. Guilt. She said she was scared of losing the place. Said if I loved our family history, I'd help save it. So I did. I paid off the debt, hired a lawyer, bought the estate in my name. Every inch of this property, From the koi pond to the wine cellar belonged to me now, but I let her stay. I told her it was still her home. I let her host. Let her pretend. Not because I was weak, but because I still believed, somehow, that motherhood came with some invisible thread of kindness. I was wrong. We stood near the stone fountain, my kid still beside me, and I watched her wave toward a man from the country club like she hadn't just crushed my children with a single sentence. She tilted her glass toward him, smiling like she had not said anything sharper than please, pass the salt in her entire life. I didn't say anything. Didn't storm out or cause a scene. That's not how I was raised. That's not how I win. Instead, I waited. Let the clock tick through the heat of the afternoon. Waited for the clink of silverware to quiet. Waited for everyone to gather near the back patio, where the champagne table was being set up for toasts. She tapped her glass with the edge of a spoon. Joyce. If I could have everyone's attention just for a moment. I stepped forward before she could speak. The sound of my heel against the patio stone felt louder than it should have, like a cue no one else had been given. Me. Before we continue, there's something I should clarify. The heads turned. All her little friends, the cousins, the club people. Some even smiled, thinking maybe I was about to share some cute story. I could feel their expectation hanging in the air, that familiar hope that I would play my usual part and keep things light. I held up a folder. Plain. Unremarkable. The cheap cardstock looked almost out of place among the crystal and linen, but it was the only thing there that actually meant anything. Me. This estate. The house, the land, the gardens you've enjoyed today, was purchased in my name. There was a sound. Soft, like a sigh breaking apart. Then whispers. A ripple moving through the crowd as people recalibrated, as if the ground had quietly shifted half an inch beneath their feet. Her smile froze. My mother's hand trembled just enough to make her champagne spill onto the patio tile. A pale streak ran between the stones, disappearing faster than the eyes watching it. Me. I allowed my family to continue using it, but I don't allow my children to be disrespected on property I paid for. The silence hit like a door slamming shut. Clean, sudden, heavy. You could hear the distant sprinklers again, the hum of the catering fridge, the tiny clink of ice settling in someone's glass because nothing human dared interrupt the moment. Eli looked up at me. Layla blinked, then smiled so small, like a secret. I saw both of them stand a little taller without moving at all, like something inside them had just been given permission to take up space. I saw one of my mother's friends step away. Another sipped her drink too fast, eyes down. A cousin shifted his weight, caught between loyalty and the relief of hearing someone say what had needed to be said for years. And Joyce? Joyce didn't say a word. Her mouth opened just slightly, then closed again, as if every line she might use had evaporated the second the truth hit the air. Because she knew I was done pretending. I wasn't here to be the polite daughter. I wasn't here to keep her image intact. I wasn't going to play the role of the grateful child while she chipped away at my children's sense of worth. She tried to humiliate my children in front of strangers. She wanted to remind me where I came from, who she believed was still in control. She wanted to prove that no matter whose name was on the deed, she was still the one who defined the story. But she forgot something important. Power doesn't come from age. It doesn't come from titles or invitations or linen dresses. It doesn't come from how many people say your name in a room like this. It comes from ownership. And I owned everything. The land, the roses, the fountain, the silence that followed, the choice to leave, or stay, to speak, or swallow the words, finally belonged to me. And she? She owned the shame. She didn't speak. Not then. Not when I walked back to my children and crouched down beside them. Not when I gently placed the folder on the table, letting the edge of it touch the lace runner she was so proud of. The folder stayed there, unopened. But everyone knew what was inside. The deed, the purchase agreement, the notarized letters with my signature and the county stamp. Joyce's world ran on perception, on glances, assumptions, curated stories whispered across garden fences. And in a single breath, I'd shattered the only illusion that made her feel powerful. Me. I'd appreciate it if no one spoke about my children like that again. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't have to. The weight of the moment carried itself. I took Layla's hand and felt how warm her palm was, how tightly she held on. Eli leaned into me, his voice barely above a whisper. Eli, are we in trouble? Me. No, baby. You just watched something people don't forget. The sun caught the gold thread in the edge of the tablecloth. I remember thinking how pretty everything still looked, even while falling apart. Joyce didn't chase me. She didn't call after me or apologize in front of her guests. She just stood there, one hand still resting on the back of a white chair, her smile gone, her eyes glassy. I guided the kids to the edge of the yard where the car was parked. The gravel crunched under our shoes, tiny stones rolling and shifting with each step. The valet boy stepped back, unsure whether to say anything, his eyes flicking from me to the house and back again. We drove home in silence. Not the cold kind, not the angry, punishing kind I grew up with. The kind that feels safe. The kids watched the road slip by. Eli traced shapes in the fogged corner of his window with one fingertip. Layla hugged the gift box against her chest even though we'd never opened it. No one cried. No one asked if we were still going back for dessert. They just let it be over. That night, I reheated leftovers. Chicken tenders and green beans. The oven hummed while the kids put their backpacks by the door. I poured milk into mismatched cups and set everything on the coffee table. We watched a movie under a blanket on the couch, all three of us wrapped together. Outside, the neighborhood was quiet, and I could feel it. Even in the quiet, something had shifted. The air in our little living room felt less crowded, like there was finally space for us. I didn't sleep much, not because I was upset, because my body still remembered what came after challenging my mother, because I knew she'd come, and she did. At 8:13 the next morning, her car pulled into my driveway. She didn't call first, just showed up. I watched her through the blinds, hair tied back, no makeup, the same navy windbreaker she wore the year Dad died. She rang the bell, twice. I opened the door but didn't invite her in. The line between us was visible only to me, but it was there, stretching right across the threshold. Joyce, you humiliated me. Her voice wasn't loud, it was tight. Me, you embarrassed my children. Her eyes flashed, then cooled. She looked past me, toward the kitchen, as if she could still walk in and make coffee like she used to. Joyce, I gave you everything. Me. You gave me guilt and rules. I bought everything else. The words surprised even me. How clean they came out. How steady. Her mouth opened, closed. Her fingers curled around the strap of her purse. Then she stepped back, arms folded, the windbreaker rustling softly. Joyce, people are calling me. Me. Then you might want to tell them the truth before they call me. She blinked, slow. She shook her head like she didn't recognize me. But she did. She just didn't recognize that I had boundaries now. Joyce, this house was meant to be passed down. Me. And I'm passing it down. To the only people who didn't try to shrink me. That was the first time I saw it. The crack. The flicker behind her eyes. Not just shame, but fear. Not because she was losing me. She never thought I'd leave in the first place. She believed I was tethered to her by obligation, by blood, by the story she retold often enough that it felt like law. But because she knew, finally, that I had stopped protecting her from consequences, stopped cushioning her fall with my silence, stopped absorbing the impact for her, she turned and walked down the porch steps. Not fast, not slow, just heavy. Like each step was dragging years of unspoken things down with it. I watched her cross the driveway, her shoulders just a little less straight than they'd been the day before. The navy jacket looked too big on her suddenly, and I stood there, hand still on the doorframe, remembering every single time she made me feel small inside that estate. The time I spilled grape juice on the patio at 13, and she made me clean it in front of her friends. Their shoes had clicked around me while I scrubbed at the stone, their conversation never pausing. The time Eli cried at Thanksgiving and she said maybe he needed a stronger hand. The way she always introduced me as my difficult one at church. A little laugh after it, a gentle pat to my shoulder, like it was a joke, like it didn't land in my chest and stay there. It built, brick by brick. She stole my story. I rewrote the ending. She called me selfish, right before she stole everything I earned. My time, my labor, my peace. I didn't ruin her. I just stopped protecting her. After that day, something unspoken settled across the family. A pause before my name came up in group chats. Calls slowed. Invites thinned. People chose sides without ever saying they were choosing. Some stopped responding to texts, hiding behind busyness. Some kept talking to both of us, but their voices shifted when the topic turned anywhere near the estate. And the funny thing is, it didn't hurt like I thought it would. It stung, sure, but it didn't hollow me out. Because for the first time, I wasn't the one bending. I wasn't apologizing in advance for making anyone uncomfortable with my boundaries. The ones who stayed, they knew. They had seen it in her too. The sharp comments, the controlling generosity. They just didn't have the paperwork. I started making changes, things no one outside our little bubble would notice. Hired a new gardener, someone who didn't whisper about my kids when I turned my back. He talked directly to Eli and Layla and asked them what flowers they liked, repainted the dining room, covered the stiff cream color my mother had chosen with something warmer. Replaced the rose bushes with hydrangeas because Layla liked them more. We picked the colors together, her finger pressing eagerly into the nursery catalog. Joyce still lived in the guest house. That was part of our agreement. I never said she had to leave. I wasn't interested in revenge. But she never invited anyone over again. There was no more brunch. No more parties. No more loud laughter drifting across the lawn. Just her. And the quiet. Sometimes I saw the curtains shift in the guest house when the kids were playing in the yard. A shadow moving, then stilling. She watched, but she didn't approach. The last time I saw her outside was early spring. The air still had teeth in the shade, but the sun was starting to feel like a promise again. She was sitting on the bench by the koi pond, her hands folded in her lap, staring into the water. The wind brushed the tops of the bushes. I stood at the corner of the path, unseen, close enough to walk over, close enough to speak. I thought about joining her, sitting down beside her on that worn wooden bench, maybe saying something, gentle, but I didn't, because some betrayals don't leave bruises, just silence. Silence where love should have been, silence where apologies never came. If you were in my shoes, what would you have done? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this. 3 months later, I got a letter. It came in one of those old-fashioned cream-colored envelopes with embossed edges, the kind that feels almost too nice to tear open. Exactly the kind my mother used to send holiday cards in when I was a kid, back when her handwriting meant there might be a check or a glittery snowman tucked inside. This time, the envelope felt heavy in a different way. Not by weight, by history. It was addressed in her careful cursive. Danielle Harper. No nickname. No little heart or swirl under my name the way she used to do when I was in middle school. Just formal letters, like a stranger. I stood at the kitchen counter, the kids already at school, the house still humming in that soft post-breakfast quiet. The dishwasher was running. The sun was pouring through the window above the sink. My coffee had gone warm. For a second, I thought about not opening it, just sliding it straight into the trash, letting the past go there, with the junk mail and grocery flyers. But I did open it. Old instincts die slow. Inside wasn't an apology, not even close. It was a list, neatly typed, numbered. Things she claimed were family heirlooms still located in the main house. She wanted them returned promptly. Her wording, not mine. A silver serving set, the one I had polished every Thanksgiving until my fingers ached. A hand-painted teacup from her great-aunt, the one I was never allowed to touch as a child but somehow was responsible for dusting as an adult. A quilt she said had been sewn during the Depression, the one that had hung at the foot of the guest bed for as long as I could remember. All things I had dusted. All things I had rearranged when staging the house for her parties. All things she never mentioned. Not once. Not even when she signed the papers and watched me save her from losing the estate altogether. Not until she felt cornered. I read the letter twice. My eyes caught on the phrasing, "Kindly remember, these items are not yours to keep. Family history cannot be purchased." I almost laughed. Almost. I didn't respond, because what she really wanted wasn't the stuff. It was control. The power to make me scramble. To prove I still answered to her. And I wasn't giving her that anymore. Instead, I boxed up everything she listed carefully, respectfully, the way you pack away a season you know you are done with. I wrapped the silver in tissue paper, folded the quilt so the worn edges were cushioned in the middle, placed the teacup in a smaller box inside the bigger one, full of padding. Not out of spite, not out of obligation, but because it felt like closing a drawer that no longer needed opening. I scheduled a courier, gave them instructions to leave the box at the guest house door. No signature needed, no note inside, no explanation. The kids had adjusted by then. The party at the estate had become just another story, one of those things their mother did that made them feel quietly safe, even if they didn't understand all the details. Eli was thriving at school. His teacher sent home little notes about how focused he was, how kind. He had joined a robotics club and started using words I had to secretly Google. Layla had started ballet. She would practice spins in the hallway, her socks sliding on the hardwood, arms thrown out for balance, hair ribbon trailing behind her. They didn't ask about her. They didn't ask when Grandma was coming over, or when we were going back to the big parties. And I didn't bring her up. We carved out our own routines instead. Slow Sunday mornings, weeknight board games, homework spread across the kitchen table with pencils rolling toward the edge. But the air around the estate had changed. Lighter, like someone had opened a window and let out years of dust, the kind you only notice when the light hits it just right. I started working in the mornings from the sunroom, the one with the wide windows facing the lawn, the room my mother once called too bright for serious conversation. To me, that became the point. I'd sit there with my laptop, a mug of coffee, and the sound of birds outside. Sometimes I would catch a glimpse of the guest house through the glass, the curtains drawn, the little porch empty. Something about the quiet helped me think clearer, helped me hear my own thoughts without her voice layered over them. That's where I was the day I found the folder again. I was reaching into the back of a cabinet for some old files, things from work I needed to sort, when my fingers brushed against the smooth edge of it. The same folder I'd held up during the party. Plain. Unremarkable. the one that had changed everything without ever being opened. I'd tucked it away in the back, not because I was hiding it, but because I hadn't needed to see it. I knew what it meant. I didn't need constant proof. But that day, I pulled it out, laid it on the table, stared at it for a moment like it might speak first. Then I opened it, just to remind myself. There it was. My name, printed cleanly on the top line. The signature. The ink slightly thicker at the end where my hand had pressed down without meaning to. The stamp from the county office in Franklin, Tennessee. The official seal that said, "This is yours. Legally. Fully. No matter what story anyone else tries to tell." I ran my fingers over it. Not out of ego. Not to gloat. But because I wanted to remember how it felt to reclaim something that was never really hers to weaponize in the first place. I thought about the first time she called the house a legacy. I think I was 8. I had scuffed the baseboard with my sneakers, and she said, "Do you have any idea what kind of legacy you are scratching up?" Back then, legacy felt like a museum with velvet ropes. Now it felt like my kids' artwork taped crookedly to the fridge. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt still, grounded, like I had finally found the floor beneath all the stories. That weekend, we had people over. Nothing big, nothing choreographed. Just a small backyard barbecue with neighbors and a few friends from Layla's school. A couple of kids chased each other across the grass with bubble wands. Someone's phone played music from a playlist called something cheesy like Good Vibes Only. The grill smoked. The smell of charcoal and marinated chicken drifted through the yard. Plastic cups sweated on the patio table. There were mismatched chairs pulled from every room, no seating chart, no linen napkins. Someone asked, halfway through dinner, if we'd bought the place recently. He was a dad from Eli's class, balancing a paper plate and a lemonade. Said it looked too perfect to feel lived in. He meant it as a compliment, a casual observation. I just smiled. Me. No, we've been here a while. It finally feels like home. The word home settled over the table like a soft blanket. No one questioned it. No one asked about previous owners or family history. Joyce didn't come. She was only a few yards away technically, but it felt like we lived in different countries. She hadn't left the guest house in weeks, except to check the mail or pull weeds near the driveway. I knew because I'd watched her sometimes, late at night, from the kitchen window. Not spying, just noticing. She always wore the same faded robe, her slippers dragging, her hair pulled back without care. The silver twist now just a loose knot. The posture that once commanded attention now folding in on itself. She still tried, occasionally, to reclaim the old script, to reach for the lever of control she had always used. She left a note in my mailbox one morning, folded in half. No envelope. Just tucked between bills and a grocery coupon booklet. "Don't forget whose blood runs through those children." I read it at the curb, the sun just starting to warm the pavement. The words were so familiar. A reminder she had used my entire life: blood, duty, owing. I didn't respond. Because blood doesn't give you access. Respect does. Consistency does. Love does. And she had lost that. Eli asked me once, gently, if Grandma would ever come back inside the big house. We were stacking dishes after dinner, steam still curling up from the sink. He dried a plate carefully, his brows pulled together. He is thoughtful like that. He looks for ways to fix things he did not break. I set the plate down, kissed his forehead. Me. Maybe. But not until she remembers who the real guests are. He nodded slowly. He understood more than I wanted him to. That this was not about punishment. It was about standards. The hardest part of the whole thing wasn't the betrayal. Not the comments about my kids. Not the lies she told other people to keep her image intact. It was the quiet realization that she had always been this way. that the version of her I kept trying to love into existence had never actually lived here. I'd just spent years convincing myself it was love, masked by tradition, that it was discipline, toughness, pride. I told myself she was hard on me because she wanted the best for me, that she criticized because she saw my potential, that the parties and the performance were just her way of surviving. But no, it was control, plain and simple. And when she lost it, she didn't know who she was anymore. Without people orbiting her, without a house to hold her stories up like a frame, she seemed smaller, not in a cruel way, in a human way. And I became someone who stopped apologizing for protecting my children, someone who stopped shrinking to make other people comfortable, someone who could host a party without asking for approval, who could buy chairs that did not match and call it charming, who could say no and not spend the next week spiraling with guilt. She smiled like I was the joke. For years, she did. Rolled her eyes when I pushed back. Made little comments about how sensitive I was. I made sure I was the punchline instead. The moment at the party, the folder in my hand, the truth in my voice. That was the punchline. Not to her joke, to the story she had written for me. That estate still stands. The walls haven't changed. The fountain still trickles into the pond like it always has, a steady sound beneath everything else. But the energy inside? It is different now. It smells like waffles on Saturday mornings, like syrup, and cinnamon and the hiss of the waffle iron, like kids' feet running across the floor too early. It smells like sunscreen and wet towels on the porch in summer, the door opening and closing with laughter, the dog tracking in grass clippings. It smells like fresh laundry and glue sticks and toy trains scattered under the dining table, like crayons left uncapped and mystery glitter on the stairs. It smells like family. Mine. Not perfect, not rehearsed, not curated, just real. And if she ever decides to knock on that front door, if she ever decides she wants to step back into this house and into our lives, she will have to do something she has never been good at. She will have to do it as a guest. If this story struck a chord, hit like, subscribe, and tell me what you think in the comments.